Hello and welcome to Oak Road Hatter, and what a difference 2 days can make. I'm joined by Jamie Castle. How are you doing, Jamie?
Yeah, feeling pretty good. Crazy what happens when you sign some players. It injects a bit of life into not only the Luton fans but podcasts like these. So yeah, looking forward to speaking about our brand new shiny toys in the form of 2 new players, albeit one of them probably is less shiny than the other.
Yeah, Jamie's mentioned it there. We're going to be talking all about the new signings for Luton, and we're also going to be looking ahead to the trip to Hillsborough to face Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday. And it is just me and Jamie today, so we're going to get straight into things. But before that, don't forget to check out Oak Road Hatter on all your social media platforms. That's at Oak Road Hatter on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And check out our website for all of our merch and all of our written content being produced on a regular basis. But Jamie, as you mentioned there, 2 new signings. We've brought in, first of all, Kal Naismith on loan, who I'm sure most Luton fans, if not all Luton fans, did not expect to be returning to the club.
No, not one bit. I think that there was some rumours that came out. I think was it late on Monday in terms of it seems like we're going to bring back Kal Naismith because he's been spotted at training today, and I was just like, what? No chance. Surely you just sort of pop by for a visit just to say hello to some of the players that he played with previously. But yeah, he's obviously on a short term deal, sort of on loan from Bristol City. I think when it first happened, I was very unsure. I think reason being because you think purely about the actual playing side of things, where you sort of think about whether he can get into our starting 11, and you think at left back, left centre back. Well, we've said that we want an improvement on Amari Bell at left back. Is Kal Naismith that improvement? Not sure. And then sort of at centre back, is he an improvement on Holmes or Anderson for now? Obviously Burke, Mengi, Lockyer, etc. To come back in. But I think when you think about the intangible side of the things that he can do, he clearly was part of a very good dressing room at Luton before he left. He's obviously no one's like Pelly, but just in terms of sort of the banter that he creates and the feeling around the place, he's got that sort of that humour and that personality that I think a lot of players like in a dressing room. So I think just to add some leadership. I mean, he's 31 now. He's got a lot of games under his belt. He's very experienced, and I'm pretty sure he was in the leadership group last time. I think obviously there was captains under Nathan, but I'm pretty sure Nathan had like a group of 3 or 4, I guess, quote unquote leaders, and Kal was part of that. And I think a lot of fans would agree that we desperately lack any sort of leadership on or off the pitch. So I think bringing Naismith in, even if just for that, I think is a positive signing. Especially if it looks like Moses is going to be sort of moving out. Obviously, we let go of Peters as well. So yeah, I think if you look at like for like, Peters out, Naismith in, then I think it's a good move.
Yeah, he's a player that brings in plenty of experience, both with Luton and elsewhere. He's played for Portsmouth, Wigan, Bristol City, Accrington Stanley, Rangers, among just to name a few. So he's got plenty of experience, and Luton fans know all about him. We know what he can offer on the pitch, and he loves the occasional shot from range, which I'm sure some Bournemouth fans will remember very well. But he's also, as you mentioned there, he's a leader and he's got that experience. And it's what we spoke about in our previous podcast, how the defence looks like it's really lacking someone who's going to talk and direct things. So hopefully he can come straight in and do that. And can you see him coming straight into that side when we travel up to Sheffield?
Definitely the squad. I think he's not had too many games this season. I think he's only had a handful, 5, 6 maybe of games this season. Not sure whether that is due to not getting into the manager's I guess squad because of quality, or whether it was injuries or lack of fitness. But I certainly think he travels with the squad and maybe starts on the bench. I mean, if he is fully fit, then maybe he does come in, because clearly Holmes and Anderson themselves haven't exactly been great. So what harm can you do if you stick Naismith maybe in that pair with McGuinness? I mean, I personally, I think in the longer term, it's hard to think where Doughty is going to play, and I think that this obviously would change my view. But I think in terms of sort of the longer term, as far as this season is concerned, I think left back is where I would play Naismith. I just think my preference would be to get either a stronger centre half in to go alongside McGuinness, or when Burke or Mengi is back. Lockyer seems unlikely, but if one of the first two are back, then they go straight in a heartbeat next to McGuinness. So for me, I can see Naismith taking that left back slot, when that obviously that means then Doughty plays further forward. Clearly, if Doughty plays back, and we'll talk about a potential signing later, that might dictate where Doughty plays. But for me, I think Naismith at left back seems like a reasonable fit. So I'm going to be really, really intrigued to see where Bloomfield wants to play him.
And he does give us that option in an area we have been pretty concerned about of late, particularly in the last few games, with Bell really looking like he's struggling since he returned from his injuries, which is, I guess, can be expected because he's getting a bit on the 30 plus a bit, and he's had a fair few injuries, all lower body injuries. So you can understand that he may be losing that bit of pace that he used to have. Not that he was ever overly quick, he just used to read the game much quicker, and it just seems to have lost that. And it probably doesn't help that we've been doing so bad generally across the defence, but having someone like Naismith who can come in and compete for that position is bound to make a big difference. There's been another new sign, and it was also announced on the same day as Kal Naismith, which I don't know whether that was originally what Luton were planning on doing, but thanks to a kid at Tesco spotting him in his Luton tracksuit, the signing of Thelo Aasgaard, I can't remember how you pronounce it, was announced quite late last night. It's Wednesday at time recording, quite late on Tuesday night, which is a very excited signing, and someone that I think a lot of clubs will have been sniffing around. He's been doing pretty well at Wigan in what is a struggling Wigan side, and has been for a few years, but he's been the standout player for them for a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. And he's a player that obviously I think a lot of people know of. Clearly, obviously he's scored 2 worlders against us that I guess stick in the memory. But he's a player that I was very much aware of, but almost sort of was put to the back of my mind in terms of a potential signing. I always knew that he had the quality, and knew that he could probably reach this level at some point. But I think just because Wigan themselves have faded into a bit of nothingness, is maybe that's harsh to say, but I think they've faded into just sort of a mid-table League One side. You just forget about the makeup of their squad. Clearly, they obviously sold Hughes to Hull in the summer as well. And I think Aasgaard is probably actually one of the better technical players in League One. Comes from the academy at Liverpool, and clearly they produce some very good players. He's in the Norwegian 21 squad, which again you've got to be of a certain caliber to be in that squad. And yeah, I mean he scored 12 in 31 this season in all competitions, which for an attacking midfielder is a very, very good return. And yeah, I guess a bit like Naismith, it's in a position where we've been crying out to sign someone. If Bloomfield wants to go with his trusty 4-2-3-1 that he played at Wickham, then I think Aasgaard slots into that number 10 almost perfectly. And I mean, a quote from Bloomfield is someone that can impact us straight away, but also has so much potential. And I think that's exactly the sort of player that we need to bring in this window, is someone that clearly, I mean, because of the situation we're in, we need players to impact day one, because if they don't, then we're going down. Simple as that. But also, you don't want to just bring in players for day one without a thought on whether they can fit into the squad for sort of next season after that, and even beyond. And I can certainly see Aasgaard becoming potentially one of the better players in the championships with good coaching and good amount of time and patience. So I can certainly see him being that. Clearly, I guess a word of caution in terms of Chong came to us, and we had so much hope for Chong, and he was a player that scored against us and did well against us, a bit like Aasgaard, and he obviously hasn't worked out to be the Chong that we have expected yet. I hope and believe that it's still in there. So I certainly wouldn't expect Aasgaard to be this well beater straight away. But in terms of strengthening the squad, adding sort of some more depth and adding some extra quality in the position that we really, really lacked it overall. I think it's a very, very positive signing.
And you mentioned how young he is. He's only 22, but he's already played, 163 times for Wigan in his career, which is some serious numbers for a player of his age. He scored 30 goals from midfield at that time as well. And this season is his most productive so far, 12 and 31 with 2 assists to add to that. And something we haven't seen in quite a while is a player that's going to have an effort from range from midfield. And he really does bring that in heaps to the team.
Yeah, and it might seem a bit of an oversimplification, but I think a large part of our issues right now are players simply not taking shots. I mean, you look at Milner at the weekend, Ivanovic having a shot from outside the box, and it just creeps in. Like, sometimes you just never know if taking a bit of a hopeful shot, it might go in. And I think a lot of our players are probably, I guess, that they lack that a lot this season. I can't remember. I think we agree. I think the last time we scored from outside the box was Mengi away at Millwall. Now, that was back in September. So to have not scored a goal from outside the box in that time, in terms of that's what you think that is the case. It just shows that, quite simply, we're not creating enough or having enough shots. So if Aasgaard has the quality to do that, and clearly from the clips that we've seen he does, hopefully he'll get us up off our seats and cheering some pretty nice goals between now and the end of the season, and hopefully beyond that as well.
And he can play on the left as well, but can you see him slotting in into that 10 position where Clark's been playing at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. I think Clark's been playing more as like an advanced 8 in a 4-3-3. I don't, apart from the last sort of period of time at Oxford, we have stuck with this 4-3-3, and I think large parts because we've not got an out and out number 10 to actually commit to a 4-2-3-1. I think Clark can do it, but I actually think he'll probably drop Clark a bit deeper in sort of that midfield too. So yeah, I think Aasgaard is primed to start in that number 10, and I think he'll start for us at Sheffield on Saturday. I think he's got the experience, albeit at a lower level. He has played games at the Championship. He's been playing week in, week out, so he's quite clearly match fit, and it's a position that he knows. So why not throw him straight in at the deep end away at Wednesday on Saturday? And I think he would add a lot to our performances.
Yeah, he certainly adds some excitement to our midfield and some ambition going forward. It looks like we could be losing a midfielder in the window, with Tom Krause being pretty heavily linked with a move to Bochum, which, unsurprising maybe that he would go back to Germany if he is leaving, because he's done fairly well, but he's struggled much like the rest of the team, and maybe the English game is different to what he's used to.
Yeah, it's one that I think disappoints me, but not necessarily because we're losing him, but because I don't think he quite hit the heights that we all had hoped. And I think when the news came out earlier, that Dad sent me, he's probably happy he came, but also happy that he's now going back. It was a nice sort of 6-month stint just to try out the Championship. I mean, there was an interview where I think over the sort of like the mid to late December period, he was saying how normally he'd have a few weeks off in Germany because of their winter break, whereas actually he's still playing Saturday, Tuesday. So I think he'll be a better player in the long run for this little spell in the Championship. But yeah, I think it's probably best for both parties that he makes the move back. I think he's a loss. I think some fans are of the view that actually he's a bit of a headless chicken and he's just a German Alan Campbell, and I don't disagree with them. I can't outward say that they're wrong, but I do think that he gives us more than a lot of fans think. And I think actually, if there were, again, a bit like Morris and Eli up top, if there were better players around them, I think he would excel. I think there's a lot of responsibility on his shoulders at the minute in that midfield for us. Clearly, a midfield that struggled for large parts, and I think if you had a proper like number 6 alongside him, I think he would do really well. Clearly, Nakamura's not been around for too much this season as well, and in the few games when Nakamura's been getting back up to speed, I think Krause has looked better. But yeah, it seems like he's going back to Bochum, a club that obviously we were fond with as well. So if there was a club to take him off our hands, then I hope it helps them in their plight for survival, because they're certainly struggling in the German top tier as well.
Yeah, he's a player that, I mean, I think he warmed, or Luton fans warmed to him incredibly quickly, particularly with the way he spoke in that first interview when he signed. You could see the passion, and you could see it every time he's played, constantly getting the fans going. But I think, yeah, he struggled with the technical side of the English game a bit. I think the pace wise, he was doing pretty well, and the physicality didn't struggle as much as I think. But in terms of the way the game's played is very different.
Yeah, I just think his performances have actually shown how easy it is to win fans over, because he's not been special, but just the fact that you can't doubt his commitment, his effort, the way he always chases the ball, like, and that's why I think a lot of fans have cut him some slack when it comes to quality and some, I guess, drop in level of performance from an on the ball perspective, is because there's one thing you can't blame him, and that is sort of lack of commitment and fight. So I guess just a message to the players that are left behind at Luton is that if all of you can just emanate Tom Krause's personality and effort, then we certainly wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. So yeah, I've enjoyed seeing him again because of that effort, and I think he's probably been played a bit too far up the pitch, if I'm honest, in terms of times he was playing off the striker and was one of the more advanced pressing midfielders. But yeah, I've enjoyed seeing him in the Luton shirt. Whether it's the end, who knows? But if it's not, then I wish him all the best.
Yeah, he's a player that's potentially on his way out. But in the last few hours, and mainly today, to be honest, there's been another pretty solid link for another new arrival. The Richard Kone deal seems to have gone a bit quiet, with Wickham reportedly rejecting a third bid, which we discussed the other day, at £6 million. But after he scored twice again last night to win another game for Wickham, you can understand they'll be playing hardball on a potential sale of him, because they can probably see some serious money coming in a, if not in the summer, maybe next January if he keeps up this current form. But we are now being pretty heavily linked, with Pete O'Rourke reporting that we've had a bid of £1.5 million accepted for Exeter City attacker Millenic Alli. So he's not a player I know much about. He's only been playing in the Football League for the last 2 seasons, really. Before that, he was playing non-league. But he's been playing for Exeter pretty solidly this season. He's made 33 appearances and has actually scored 10 goals for them. So he provides something that we're lacking in terms of double-digit goal scorers.
Yeah. I mean, I think firstly on the Kone piece, I think you're right. So it seems like the £6 million deal was split 3.5, 2.5, which 3.5 up front, 2.5 in add-ons, and I think I can see why Wickham turn that down, because for them, I think the number is something like £8 million difference in revenue if you go up to the Championship or stay in League One, and they're thinking, well, based on the way he's playing, he's almost a League One cheat code and will get us up to the Championship. So why would you sell him and risk that status next season? So I think for that sum of money, I think it's fair to turn it down. And then on Ali at Exeter, I don't overly know too much about him. I don't think he's a number 9, which for me I think is good. I still want to give Morris and Eli the benefit of the doubt and let better players around them support them. I think he clearly isn't our first choice, because it's come after the Kone rumours in terms of 3 bids being rejected. So maybe we've turned our focus towards Ali now. But I think what Bloomfield likes and what we lack is pace and power in that front 3. Now, Eli and Morris have a bit of pace and power, maybe not to the level that he wants, but I think they certainly don't lack it. clearly we've signed Jones that definitely has pace and a bit of power from what we've seen so far. So to be able to have someone off that left in Alli, and not that he's an out and out left winger either. I think he's sort of fairly flexible and can play across the three, but he has played on that left quite a bit for Exeter, sort of cutting in on his right and taking some shots. I feel like he could suit us, and he might not get the amount of goals that we want. But I think he's someone that I think our squad needs right now. From what I've seen, he reminds me a bit of a Lualawar, and if he's to that level, okay, Lualawar didn't contribute too many goals or assists, but we just loved him as a player just because of the pace and power, and he got lots of pre-assists, for example, because he just got into good positions. So if Ali can get to the levels of Lualawar, then I think it'd be a good signing. And yeah, £1.5 million might not be that cheap anymore for a League One player, but we've got cash to burn, and if that signing helps us towards our goal of staying at this level, then it's money well spent.
Yeah, he's played 25 times in League One this season, and he scored 9 times in those matches. He's only started 19 of those games, but the thing that stands out for me is when you look at the number of shots and his shot accuracy. He's got an XG of 5.06, so he's massively overachieving what his XG is. But he's had 42 shots in 25 games with a 64% shot accuracy. So he's someone who will get a shot away, and more than likely he'll hit the target with his effort, which is something we've not seen as well. And we discussed it with Aasgaard, someone who's going to take a shot at goal. But Ali as well is in an Exeter team that's not doing massively well. They're doing fairly well for the size of the club they are, but it's not like a standout finish or position in the league. So for him to have had that many shots and 64% shot accuracy, I think is pretty impressive, and definitely a good sign of what he can potentially bring to the club, because it does look like it's a deal that's potentially going to happen before the weekend. And I think getting him into the squad as well just gives you another option off that left or on the front, particularly with someone like Chong unavailable. I've said a lot about Chong and how I don't think he's lived up to what he could do, but he's a different option to what we have in those wide areas already. And I think we need variety in the players we've got. So bringing in both Aasgaard and Ali is definitely going to give us those different options.
Yeah, definitely. And I was looking at some stats now, and I think you're right. I mean, in terms of when he does get into positions and get shots away, I think he's doubly effective in terms of goals v XG. You're right, Exeter are 17th in the league, so haven't really obviously achieved. Again, that's a good position for the club, but in terms of what he's expected to do in a club that's 17th in League One, I think it's decent stats. But what I would point to is actually his passing and dribbling stats. I mean, in terms of successful dribbles, he's in the 87th percentile in League One, which shows that he can beat a man pretty well. And again, something that we don't really have at the minute in this club is players that can get on the ball and just beat a man and get past someone. So I see that as a positive. And then I mean, in terms of the cross, so in terms of his cross rate, he's in the 94 percentile in terms of crosses. And again, I think we do rely on crosses a little bit too much. But if we can have someone that is more accurate and whips the crossing better than our current options, then that's gonna add some variety to our play. So. Yeah, I think it's jury's out whether he'll get into our 11 straight away, but just to add a bit of depth and again some pace and power, as I said earlier, I think it's a signing that on the face of it is probably one that would benefit our squad.
Yeah, and I can imagine he'd definitely be up for the challenge of stepping up another level. Bearing in mind, if you look at his trajectory of his career so far, he's played for South Shields, Ashton United, Chorley, Stockport, and Halifax before moving to Exeter. So he's been around the lower leagues, but has moved up them very, very quickly. And he's still only 24. So hopefully there's plenty still to come from him. I just want to talk about the window as a whole, because on Monday night when we recorded last, we were pretty heavily pretty negative about the window, and understandably so, having only brought in 2 players at the time we recorded then. But with 2 more confirmed, and then potentially there's another player being brought over the line now. Do you think that is enough for it to be seen as a positive window?
It's better. I think positive. I think the level of positive is probably higher than it would normally be for January, just because of what we needed. I think had we done our business in the summer, then you'd be more than happy with the window that we've had now in terms of adding quality in areas that we needed it. But I think we left a lot to be done in summer, which has sort of forced our hand a little bit in this window, especially in the 3 games that Bloomfield had since he's come in. Performances that overall were, I think, probably a solid 6 out of 10 across the board, but I think made worse by the fact that just some individual performances were pretty poor. And I think it gets pointed to the fact that, look, Edwards clearly had some issues. Bloomfield's come in and tried to rectify them, but still having some issues with individual performances. So the one way to solve that is bringing players in. I think it'll be seen as a positive window if we can just get maybe 1 or 2 more on top of the names that we've already spoken of. If we're losing Krause, I would love to get a centre mid in. The name that I mentioned months ago was Matt Grimes, but unfortunately it seems like he's going to Coventry. I mean, apparently the deal there is 3.5 million, and that would have just transformed our team in that midfield. Just the prospect of having maybe Grimes and whether it's Clark or Darboe next to him and an Aasgaard in the 10. I just think that would have completely transformed our team. So I would like to see a centre mid. I mean, there are some names out there. I know Ethan Erhan was someone that we mentioned before at Lincoln, and maybe it would be a bit of a risk to bring someone in that hasn't got experience at this level. But even despite Lincoln not having as good of a season this season as last season, he's still put in some good performances, and he's a left-footed midfielder, someone that we've, I guess, is one of those themes that we've been looking at for a number of years, especially since we lost Dewsbury Hall. And yeah, I think bringing in someone like that, I think there's probably question marks on whether a midfield of, for example, Derby and Aasgaard would lack at that sort of experience that we need at this level. But I think it's rare that the 3 of them would probably play together for this next 6 months. And if you sprinkle in the experience of Nakamba and Walsh and Clark and Pelly, then I think in terms of those 4 experienced options and the 3 younger, probably more talented and more ambitious options in terms to form options across that midfield 3, I think having an option like Ethan Erhan from Lincoln would be really good. And quite clearly we've got money to spend. We've obviously bidded £6 million for Kone. We're spending 1.5 of that on Ali, so we've still got a decent chunk of cash. If we do want to spend it, we can spend it. So, and I don't think Erhan would cost that much. So yeah, I'd bring someone like him in if it was up to me.
And with the sum that we were offering for Kone being so public in terms of it being reported quite widely, do you think that wakes a lot of teams that we're doing business up with the amount of money we're now willing to spend on players?
Probably. I mean, I think if I was the board, I would ask those selling clubs to have a bit of, I guess, perspective on the fact that you're bidding £6 million on a player that is scoring goals for fun at the league below and is a good age, and look at the performances, and if they were to compare their player to Kone, then there'd probably be a bit of perspective on actually, yeah, you can see why you've bidded that much. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that clubs clearly know that we've got money, it would certainly eke out the 5 and 10% extra that clubs may want otherwise. I mean, is Ali worth 1.5 million? Probably not. Probably more in the sort of 1.1, 1.2 million range. But just because Exeter know we've got a bit of cash, then they've got every right to ask for a few 100,000 more. So yeah, that ultimately is the price you pay for getting into the Prem and getting parachute payments. But there's no use getting cash to sit on it if it's just going to sit there and in the meantime the on the pitch stuff is going to suffer. You need to spend the cash rather than just sit on it, because you don't want to spend an extra £250,000. And I hope it's a sign that the board have learned from issues in the summer, because they probably missed out on targets that they wanted, but they didn't want to spend that extra 300,000 on. So yeah, I just hope that this last week has showed that the board have maybe learned from their mistakes in the summer.
Yeah, there's plenty to discuss there on the transfer front, and we'd love to know your thoughts if you're listening to this and want to have your say on the business that's been done and the business that's been rumoured with. So let us know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube or on social media. That's at Oak Road Hatter. We're going to go to a quick break now, but when we get back, we're going to be looking ahead to the trip to Hillsborough. Welcome back to Oak Road Hatter, where I'm still joined by Jamie, and we're looking ahead to the trip to Hillsborough on Saturday, where we'll be facing Sheffield Wednesday away from home, who are currently 10th in the table. So, I mean, they're pretty clear of us as it stands. And their recent form isn't awful, Jamie. They're 1-2, drawn 2, and lost 1 of their last 5 league games. And on their day, they can be a very tough test.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you say their form isn't awful. Well, it's a damn lot better than ours, given I think we're probably bottom in the league in terms of recent form. So yeah, I think everything is said with the caveat of where we're at. But yeah, they're a side that I think have outperformed expectations this season, in large part down to the manager role. I think he's certainly someone that's going to be sought after in the summer, and if they lose him, then maybe that their season next season might not be as good as they would hope. I think if Sheffield Wednesday fans have been honest, I think Chansiri right now is getting away with it just because of the manager that he's appointed is doing so well. But if they were to lose Roll and he was to appoint a subpar manager, then they could probably quickly fall down the leagues. So yeah, they're 10th this season. I think there's a very distinct difference between home and away form. Thankfully for us, it goes in the favour of their away form being better than their home form. So looking ahead to the weekend, maybe we can take advantage of that. I mean, away from home, I think they're 5th in the league. Yeah, they've sort of won 6 and drawn 2 of their 14 games away. But then if you go to home, they've only won 5 and drawn 6 of their 15 games at home, and they're actually 17th place in the league at home. So they have lost 4 out of 15 this season. So hopefully we can add a 5th to that record. Going into Saturday, and their squad overall is a slightly strange one. In terms of, there's no one in the attacking area that overly scares me. They've obviously got Michael Smith, Josh Windass. They've got players like that they're very experienced players, right? They've got a lot of players in their forward areas that are in their 30s, so they clearly know the level really well. But again, they're not of a level where I guess I overly fear those players. But what I would say, and I think it feeds into their away form being better than their home form, is they've got a really good base, and that is sort of back 4, midfield 2. Like Bannon and Shay Charles as that midfield 2 is up there, I would say, at this level. Shay Charles, when he went back to Southampton in January for a little bit, I was like that it would be a great signing for us to get in on loan. Unfortunately, it seems like Southampton will come down and he'll get into their squad next season, because I think he's a very, very good centre mid at this level. And then in terms of their back 4, Lowe at left back is obviously experienced at this level. Valerie at right back, same. And then I think they got a centre half pairing in Bernard and Hickway. I think I pronounced that right. That clearly have a few games under the belt, and they're forming a pretty sort of back 4. So I think that base that I've spoken of in terms of the back 4 and the midfield 2 suggests maybe why they're better away from home, because they can see games out, and that they can soak up pressure and then maybe hit teams on the counter. Whereas at home, where they've maybe got a subpar attack and an aging attack that I guess excites less, they can't quite break teams down, and it happens to them where they get done on the counter. So that probably is my short sort of assessment of why maybe their home and away form is different. But yeah, I just hope that at the weekend, with a bit of new blood and energy injected into our squad from the new signings that we mentioned in the first half. I hope that we can go up to Hillsborough and just break this curse of away games, and even if it's just a point, it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a bit more about that midfield pairing because when we recorded ahead of our home match against them, we really spoke about Barry Bannon in quite a lot of detail. And I remember we took the mick out of him saying he's about 80 years old, but he is their standout on the ball player, and he's probably one of the better ball playing midfielders in the whole division. He just happens to be a lot older than a lot of the other ball playing midfielders, so he's not likely to get a move anywhere. But alongside him, Shea Charles is, as you mentioned, he's absolutely brilliant. He does all of the grunt work for Barry Bannon. I think he's second behind Abu Adams at Derby in terms of duels won on the ground. So he's someone who's really going to put a foot in and get himself on the ball and just offload it quickly to Bannon to bring other players into play. So he's a player that you look at and you think, if you can keep him away from the ball, it's potentially a team that you can break down at home. And I think that is what's happened when they've been beaten at home by other teams. Leeds, for example, obviously beat them quite heavily in a recent game, which was actually at Leeds, but they were able to keep Charles away from the ball and play it around pretty quickly, which obviously comparing us to Leeds right now is shades apart. But if you look at the players we've got and the options we've got, particularly in those wide areas, if you can channel the ball down into the wide areas and get those crosses into the box, you'd hope that we can create chances against them. Because whilst Danny Rowe is an absolutely fantastic manager, and I think everyone thinks he'll be probably elsewhere next season, you can see him quite easily being in a mid-table championship side. Their home form has, as you've mentioned, it has suffered because they can't finish chances as well as they would like to. But they do have a couple of good players in Gassama and Masaba in those wide areas that can cause problems and do have pace.
I think one of the interesting matchups for me will be in that midfield, because obviously we'll play that 3-man midfield 4-2-3-1. That they play more of a 4-4-2. So, in the midfield, can our 3-man midfield outwit their two? It's a very good two in Charles and Bannon, but can we outwit it? And then can our centre halves deal with two number 9s on them? You've got Windass and Lowe, very very different sorts of number 9s, but I think they obviously they offer different stuff. But again, neither of them are, I guess, overly quick or overly strong. So that would be an interesting matchup. And just back on Rolf on the last point, I can see actually Southampton going down, them sacking URH, picking up Danny Rowe. They've seen that he's got the most out of Shea Charles, and he'll do the same at Southampton and get them up. So that's my early tenor for next season. And I think Shea Charles will be a Premier League player in the 26-27 season. I think he's that good.
Yeah, certainly a player that a lot of teams will be looking at as well when he does return to Southampton, because it looks like they're going to be in the Championship without a doubt next season. So he's certainly a player that Southampton fans will be excited about what he can bring to them. He's another player that was at the Man City Academy for quite some time. And you look at some of the players that have done that as well, the likes of Cole Palmer, Morgan Rogers, who have all gone through that academy system and flourished. So you can see him doing the exact same thing. We actually did beat them when they came to us. It was pretty fortunate on our side and pretty unfortunate for Dijon Bernard, who conceded a penalty, which was probably not a penalty. I think we all accepted that afterwards, and then spent about 10 minutes refusing to go off the pitch when he was red carded. But if we can get a bit more luck like we got at home, it's a game you look at and you think this is time to turn around our run of away defeats.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot's been said about the run of games that comes next. Sunderland away, Sheffield United at home. We've got that rearranged game against Argyle in between that, but then Watford away. And then we've got Pompey at home, which is fine, but then you've got Burnley away as well. We've got Borough at home not long after that. So you've got a run of games that starts to get pretty dramatic. So you look at, in particular, the Wednesday away game, the Plymouth at home game, the Pompey at home game, and the Cardiff away game between now and sort of middle of March. They're the games that we really need to get points from. Obviously, we'd love to go to Vicarage Road at the end of February and get some points as well. So yeah, again, it's going to be a tough game, obviously, because they're 10th in the league, and on the basis of this season, they're a better side than us. I think there's no hiding from that on the basis of this season. But just hope that with Bloomfield now having a full week to sort of get some training into the players, get some new players into the building. Hopefully, we can get Ali across the line before Saturday, and maybe one more would be great. Yeah, if we can go to Wednesday and if we can get a win, that'll be unreal, because I mean then it sort of takes a bit of pressure off of Sunderland and Sheffield United. If we can get a point, then fine. But I think if we lose against if we lose away on Saturday, and then you've got Sunderland away and Sheffield United at home, and the odds are probably you're going to get maximum a point from those, then that adds so much pressure on that game against Argyle. So just to take a bit of pressure off, we really severely need some points on Saturday.
With Tom Krause going back to Germany by the looks of it, who can you see coming into that midfield area? Or do you think he'll put Aasgaard straight in and drop Clark a bit deeper?
Yeah, I think he'll do that. I think pending Darbo being fit, I think he'll do Nakamva and Clark as the midfield two. Maybe Walsh. I know Bloomfield has said that he does like Walsh and he's looking forward to using Walsh as a player. But yeah, I think in terms of just the safe bet right now would be Nakamva and Clark as that midfield two, and then Aasgaard in the number 10. Now, if Darbo's back, then maybe he sticks with, I guess, the more of the midfield three and does Nakamva, Darbo and Clark. But yeah, I see no reason why we can't just throw Aasgaard straight in. As I said earlier, he's match fixed. He's playing week in, week out. He's scoring goals. He's in a real good vein of form right now. Not only has he scored the goals that he scored, but you think he's scored something like 9 and 11. Actually, I think his record is. He's got a pretty good record. So yeah, he's a confident boy. He's on a high at the minute, signing for a new club in the Championship. So I would throw him straight in that number 10 role.
And he'll take some pressure off the forward line, who you'd expect Jones to start on that right side, or at least I would expect him to. I think he's probably our best option off the right. And then it's a toss-up between Morris and Eli up front, and it's difficult to pick which one will start because neither are in great form. But I think more for the experience than anything else, you can probably go with Morris from the start, away from home at Hillsborough, which just leaves that left-hand side, which we've discussed with Ali. We've mentioned Brown, but Brown has not played well recently, and I can't see him sticking with Brown on that left. So you wonder what will happen on that left-hand side.
Yeah, I think the front four for me would have to be Doughty, Aasgaard, Jones and Morris. So then it leaves a question on left back, whether you stick Bell and then put Naismith maybe alongside McGuinness, or do you throw Naismith in at left back if he's fit, or do you just stick with that same back four? I don't know. But right now, I think you need to put your best players in areas that can hurt the opposition. And whilst we lack another option at left wing, I think you've got to play Doughty there. So yeah, I think you're quite right in Jones and Morris. And if we're agreeing that Aasgaard is the number 10, then I think for me Doughty completes the set with sort of on that left hand side, and that as a front four is pretty exciting. And I would certainly back us to go away and get a goal, get a goal or two with that front four.
Yeah, and with that we're gonna go to some predictions. So you said with that front four you can expect us to get a goal or two. What do you think we're actually going to get away from home?
I want to stay positive. I don't think Luton fans can do anything but at the minute. I think if you get too negative, then it's going to be a pretty difficult 6 months. So I'm going to stay positive. I think we will score 2. I think we'll do enough to limit them to 1. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 Luton win.
I was also going to go for a 2-1 Luton win. I'm looking forward to going away from home. It's a new away game for me. It's a new away ground for me. And hopefully see the first away win since Millwall away, which feels like absolutely ages ago now, and it was ages ago. But yeah, I'm pretty optimistic about this. I think the signs in the week have completely changed my mood around the club, and it will have done for a lot of people. So hopefully it'll be a sellout Luton away end and a pretty optimistic Luton away end. Looking forward to seeing new players on the pitch and hopefully new energy. So I'm going to agree with you on that, and I'm going to go Luton 2, Sheffield Wednesday 1 as well. So we'd love to know your score predictions if you're listening to this. So let us know, as always, in the comments or on social media, and hopefully we'll be talking about the first Luton away win since Millwall when we come to record on our next pod. But from myself and from Jamie, thank you very much for listening.